Stories from Foster Care is brought to you by the Irish Foster Care Association in association with the Department of Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth. Welcome to Stories from Foster Care. I'm Andrew Murphy. On today's episode, I had a really interesting discussion with Lisa Clancy, who has dedicated her time in foster care to children with disabilities.
In theory, we're going to take children with disabilities and we're going to do the very best we can. And then in practice, you're looking at these children, especially for us, not all children would have medical needs, but for us, she had quite a lot of medical needs. So I had a list the length of my arm of medications, of hospitals that we needed to attend, of appointments. So for me, going into this was basically a full-time job. It wasn't just, something that I was doing out of passion. It was something that I had to throw myself into 150%.
Lisa shared her family's rich journey in foster care, as well as some of the challenges. I hope you enjoy listening. Lisa, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us this morning. I'm really looking forward to speaking to you about this issue and about how you navigate the world of fostering and looking after children who have disabilities, and it's great to be able to talk to you about your experience of that. Lisa, tell me, how did you get into fostering and how long are you at it, and how did that come about in your life?
Well, thank you, Andrew, for having me.
You're very welcome.
I'm delighted to be asked. So we were very young parents. We became parents quite young. I was just barely 17 and my husband was barely 20. So by the time we were 25, I was 25, we had 3 of our own children. So as time went on, we hit our early 30s. We wanted to look into doing some kind of, I suppose we like fostering. We've always liked the idea of fostering, but it's not always you can like the idea of something and not exactly do it when you get into it. So at the time, I wanted to go back to education and I wanted to become an ID nurse. So that's intellectual disability. Mm-hmm. So that would have been my first choice. But as it happened, we come across somebody who started to talk about fostering, and a friend of mine also fosters. So we decided maybe we'll go down this route. Maybe we'll look into it. I was working in an area around disabilities at the time. So I did see that there was a gap in the market for children with disabilities, around fostering, around caring, even just around helping out parents to keep their children, at home with a little bit of care and help. So that was my first aim. So we kind of just, we inquired, got talking to a social worker who was very interested in my theory, I suppose, for fostering and why we wanted to foster. And we took it from there.
And in terms of children with disabilities, how did that come about for you? Was that part of your assessment? Or did you seek to do that in particular? How did that come about for you?
Yeah, because of my background in working with disabilities, it would have been something that would have been more what we were interested in. My husband was also interested in that area. He works in that area also now at the moment. So we would have both decided going forward that would have been the area we wanted to look into. We didn't necessarily rule out mainstream children, but we did feel that, if we were going to go forward on with this, we felt that disabilities would have been an area that we really wanted to go down for.
So you had a particular passion around the area.
Absolutely.
So fostering and you had a passion about
disability,
supporting people with disabilities and children with disabilities. No, that's amazing. And you put your studies on hold.
I did. I had done 1.5 to 2 years of social care at the time, and I was planning on, after the 3rd year, to go into ID nursing. And because I'd been out of education since I was 16, I had to kind of get a feel for it as well. But so when we had our first placement, which was very, very soon after we were passed.
How soon, Lisa? Tell me about that.
Well, within 24 hours. They arrived with a cot in the back of the car, I always remember, and said, we have a little girl who we had kind of said from day one, if you were passed, this little girl would go to the Clancys, and that's so she arrived straight away within 24 hours. Well, actually, she didn't. I collected her.
Wow.
And I'll always remember driving down the road and stopping the car and looking at her in this little, tiny, little frail little girl with all these disabilities, all these different medical things wrong with her, and looking at her and going, oh, please God, help me to do the very best I can do for this little girl.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I even looked at the fostering side of it at that stage.
Sure.
I just looked at this little girl and her needs.
Yeah. It must be incredibly daunting. I'm always struck by that especially for first time fosters, that first day, that first time, the first hour that you have with the child. And obviously your little one at the time was fragile, as you say. Very, very, just a really daunting and overwhelming experience.
Yeah, because in theory, you know, oh yeah, we're going to take children with disabilities and we're going to do the very best we can. And then in practice, you're looking at these children, especially for us, not all children would have medical needs, but for us, she had quite a lot of medical needs. So I had a list the length of my arm of medications, of hospitals that we needed to attend, of appointments. So for me, going into this was basically a full-time job. It wasn't just, you know, something that I was doing out of passion. It was something that I had to throw myself into 150%.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine. And Lisa, so that was your first daughter, foster daughter that came to you, and then I think you have 3 foster children
We
total.
have, we have our oldest. She came not long after the first. She is now in aftercare with us. She's 19 nearly.
Okay.
She's finishing her leaving cert at the moment. And yeah, she came, she has her own, she fetal alcohol syndrome. So she would have her own issues. And then 10 years later, our middle daughter's little sister came to live with us.
Okay.
So, and she's autistic and ADHD. So,
Okay. So you've got, without getting into too much detail about the girls themselves, you've got a child with fetal alcohol, you've got a child on the autistic spectrum, and you've got a child with
a rare genetic disorder.
A rare genetic disorder. So you've got a wide range of, I'm sure, different appointments and strategies and responsibilities.
Yeah.
Like, could you tell me, like, obviously that's been a journey and you've built up your experience. What's a typical morning like in your house?
Well, there is no typical. We go with the flow basically, but usually about 7 o'clock we have a support worker that will arrive, and she's great. I would be lost without her. She's from the HSE. She's attending our house now for the last 4 years. The girls love her. Her name's Mary, so Mary will come and she'll help us get the middle girl out of bed, dressed and washed, the usual. Sometimes she won't get out of the bed, you know, it'll be no. She's also deaf, profoundly deaf, our middle child. So once she doesn't put her baha on, she can't hear us. Sometimes she refuses to put the baha on because she doesn't want to hear us. You know, so they've great personalities, you know, and then I would leave, that would free me up time to go into her sister who has autism, who is the princess of the house, who likes her breakfast brought to her in bed. So you're running around. You're running around for her. You're getting everything done for her. And it's just from there, like the older girl has to be got up. She has her exams at the moment. So she's on tenterhooks. They all attend special needs schools. So you're talking about buses. It's like Central Station. The buses arrive in our house. One goes, my husband also drives a bus. So it's one after the other. They come back and forth. And then when they're gone to school, I'm like every other household. It's the cleaning, the washing, and then it's chasing up appointments and chasing up everything else that has to go with it. Yeah.
A busy start to the day.
Absolutely
24/7. Yeah. And Lisa, just go back a little bit on that, I suppose. Look, you said you've a few supports there. You've got the special school and the different diagnosis. What was that? Was there struggles? Was there difficulties trying to establish that? I mean,
well, and like everything with disabilities, nothing is ever straightforward and nothing is ever handed to you. You have to fight for everything. And it doesn't matter whether the child is in foster care or not. You know, we are seen essentially as a family with a child or children with disabilities, and everything has to be fought for. You know, the support work didn't kick in, someone coming into my home till my middle girl was 16 or 6,
Right.
which is only the last 10 years we're getting that. And her first few years would have been her hardest few years, you know.
Yeah.
Then with the child with little girl with autism, the same with herself. We were trying to get her diagnosed for years. We were being constantly told by social workers, no, it's trauma, it's trauma. She hasn't got anything else from her, it's trauma.
Okay.
And it wasn't. Like, use your mommy instincts. You know,
Mm-hmm.
mommy instincts always tell us there's something wrong.
Right.
And it doesn't matter whether they're our children or somebody else's children, you always know when you're caring for a child.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
how long did
so
that part go, Lisa, for you in terms of trying to get that right between the debate maybe between the trauma and the or other difficulties that were going on for her?
well, years, you
Really?
know, from day one, we had always said, because her sister has so much disabilities, that obviously there was going to be something, but because she had none of the physical disabilities that her sister had, they were, you know, more or less saying, well, it's probably trauma, but this little girl came straight into care. And I know they say they can also have trauma from the womb and things like that, but we just knew there was something else wrong. She would sit
Sure.
on the floor, bang her head, scream all day and all night. You know,
Okay.
it was like my own children had a lot to put up with at the beginning.
Sure. Sure.
You know, they were great, but I mean, it's not easy for children in a house where another child is screaming, banging their head off the floor, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, and then mommy is ringing social worker and saying, we need to get her assessed, and social worker saying, oh no, it's only trauma. It's trauma, you know.
Okay.
We'll sort it out, it's trauma.
And what changed that, do you think, Lisa? What was the shift in that thinking?
Me just constantly banging on about it. And then I went into, when they went to she went to preschool.
Okay.
I managed to get her into a special needs preschool. First, we got her into an ordinary preschool, and with the help of that preschool teacher, we kind of said together, look, there's something a little bit more going on with this little girl than, you know, than meets the eye. It's not just, you know, trauma. And I'm not putting trauma down in any way, let me tell you, that's hard enough. But to have autism on top of that, you know, so we ended up being referred, and it took a good 2 years before she was assessed.
Okay. And did the diagnosis then, did that help in terms of then being able to put a plan in place for her and your family?
Well, we were able to get our supports that we needed. We were able to, I mean, she would have a bowel situation where a lot of autistic kids have, and she would have outgrown, say, pull-ups from supermarkets. So we were able to get from the HSC, you know, supplies. We were also able to get her into a school that suited her needs. Also, we were able to, you know, see a pediatrician, discuss maybe her sleeping issues. You know, it no longer just felt like, you know, the child is acting up, or the child, you know, this is a situation. She's just not sleeping because it's just her age. Or we knew now that we had it in writing. There's something more going on with this child, and it's so important to have that diagnosis.
And Lisa, for you and your husband, in terms of feeling heard, I suppose, important for you?
Absolutely. Like, it can become very frustrating when you have one child with disabilities. It can also often, and then you have the second, and then when you have a third, it can also be looked on, oh, she's seeing disabilities everywhere she's looking now, you know, that kind of way. So you have to be really careful, you know, that you're not labeling a child that doesn't need to be labeled, basically.
Absolutely. It is definitely, it's a very sensitive area, isn't it, for lots of families in foster care, where they're trying to grapple with that diagnosis versus trauma, and just supporting children as their previous experience has unfortunately given them a hard start in life. You mentioned your own children there earlier on, Lisa, in relation to, you know, it was difficult at times for them. How, as a family, I mean, and you're very much a family. Can you talk to me a little about that, and about the relationships and the goings on between all of them?
Well, you know, it's, my children were always open to fostering from the day we mentioned it. I suppose we were one of those houses where I always brought children to school in my car. I always brought, you know, kids on the street always found their home in my home. We always had people staying over. So our house was always a very one of those houses where everybody said, oh, we'll stay in, my daughter's name is Megan, we'll stay in Megan's house, that kind of thing. So when we broached the subject over fostering, we had an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 16-year-old who was our oldest son. And they were very much open to it. They were like, yeah, mommy, great. And when we spoke about disabilities, they were absolutely open to it. They were like, yeah, this is so different. Yeah, definitely. Now, when you say disabilities, people automatically think you're going to get maybe a child with Down syndrome or something like that, and they're going to come into your home and it's going to be great and whatever. So I had to kind of say to them, we could be dealing with a lot more than that. We could be dealing with, we could be dealing with short lifespan. We could be dealing with chronic medical histories. So they did ask me, and I remember always saying to them, I'll be very open with you and I'll always tell you things, and there'll be no hiding anything. So my 16-year-old did say to me, look, ma'am, please don't hide anything from us. Please chat to us, sit around the table, say it to us, this is happening, this is not happening. If you're upset, don't say, oh, no, it's okay, it's okay. Yeah. Please tell us what's going on. So I suppose from day one, we had an open door policy about everything that was going on. Age appropriate. Obviously, the younger children couldn't be told things about certain areas, but it was age appropriate as they got older. So as they got older, our children have very much looked on our foster children as their siblings.
Yeah.
And my son got married before Christmas there last year, and they were both bridesmaids.
Lovely.
The girls were all bridesmaids. And my daughter had my first grandson there 2 years ago, and the middle girl, who has all the disabilities, she's the godmother of him, so it's very much they are their siblings, and they have said if there's ever issues that we are not able to care for them, they would like to be broached about stepping in as well.
It's something I hear about quite often is foster families is the children who foster, and how they're so willing to come forward and to be that second supporter, looking into the future. And they've naturally said that already themselves.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, at the moment, my children are now 24, 25 and 33. So they have their own lives. They have their own partners, but their own partners are made very aware of, our foster children from day one. So when they arrive into our house, it's a big shock for them. I've often seen their faces. They're like, because the girls are up in their faces and they're like, hello, my name is, and as my son said about his poor wife, when she met them first, she didn't know where to put her face. They were sitting up at the table. They were bringing home a Chinese and they were going into the kitchen and they were having a romantic night. And next thing they'd look around and here's the one sitting up at the counter waiting for her bit of Chinese with them, and that's just the way it is.
And that's the normality in your house.
That's it. That's normal.
But they really are the unsung heroes, I think, of the birth children quite often.
Absolutely.
And would you have a sense of them being overlooked in the system at all in that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was, say, over Easter, for instance, there was an example. They were giving out Easter eggs and giving out chocolates to the foster parents, giving out Easter eggs to the foster children. This is Tusla. And the birth children weren't included in that.
Okay.
And I mean, all right, minor adults. But I remember when they were little. Sure. And I remember the door being opened and a big bag of eggs being handed in for the foster children. And my own children going, we get nothing. It's not fair because they are the unsung heroes. Yeah. They are the ones who share their mommy and daddy.
Yeah.
In everything. And my daughter was my baby, but she then became one of the middle siblings. Yeah. She had to step over. She was no longer the baby.
Yeah.
So
it's a big ask, isn't it, Lisa?
It is, absolutely.
You guys you've got a great system and you've got a great connection with each other, so it's not an issue for you, but it is a huge challenge, and I think we do need to pay more attention to it.
I think so. I think, and I think even Tusla needs to realise that at the end of the day, I don't think we could foster without our children.
Really, yeah.
No, I really don't. I think at the beginning we thought we could, but I think as time went on, and as I was saying, there was a time where we did have a really hard time of it. And I remember putting my head in my hands and saying, I can't do it anymore. I tried, I just can't do it. And I remember my own children saying, no, Mum, we can't give up. It'll be okay. We'll help. It'll be okay. Yeah. We will help.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and they were brilliant, and they
Yeah.
did. And I mean, they were only little, they were only teenagers maybe at the time. And teenagers have their own lives. They don't want to be
Yeah.
bothered with what is going on in mommy and daddy's life, you know.
Well, they sound like very exceptional people, Lisa. So
They're very grounded, I
they're,
have to say. They're
well,
great.
look, they're not licking that off the ground, are they?
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Danielle Douglas. You're listening to the Stories from Foster Care podcast. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
And Lisa, if, in terms of, I suppose, trying to navigate fostering is difficult enough as it is, okay? And then obviously we've talked about the challenges that the girls have and the dynamics of the family. So obviously remembering that foster children have their family outside of fostering, the fostering family, what's that been like for you in trying to manage? Is there access? Do you have to manage that?
Yeah, like my oldest sibling, the oldest foster child, both her parents have passed on, but when they were alive, there was accesses. She has siblings that she doesn't want to know.
Right.
That's her choice, and maybe in the future she will, but we'll always give her that option. The younger girls, the two that are sisters, theirs was always very difficult because mommy herself has an intellectual disability.
Okay.
So her level of understanding was, instead of letting us explain to her, she'd get aggressive with us and get angry with us and frustrated. And it took me years to understand that. Like at the beginning, I was like, why can't you see we're only trying to help? Why can't you, you know? And it was only years later, I suppose, as I got older and I got more into what I was doing and got, I suppose, matured myself in the fostering area, I realized, oh my God, this poor woman, the reason why she's aggressive towards us, she's angry towards us, because I'm doing everything that she wanted to do. And she can't do it. And through no fault of her own, you know, so it can be very difficult.
Yeah. It's that's I think that's really nice that you caught that, Lisa,
Yeah,
and we're able
it
to
took me
see
a long
that.
time now. I'm
I
not
know,
saying that it was
I
easy
know,
at the beginning, because it absolutely wasn't.
But I think if, you know, when you're a foster family, you're fostering the other family a little bit, as much as
Yeah,
you
you do.
can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. And you get this sense of empathy for them. And no matter what came before you, you get this sense of empathy towards them. And I mean, the mother, I'd have awful trouble, you know, and I still would all these years later with her, but I'd still have that empathic feeling towards her, because when I see my children, my girls, they're her girls,
Yeah.
and they look like her, and they're the
Yeah.
very same as her, and they actually have her mannerisms, which is so funny, you know. And you just kind of have that empathy. You just don't have any choice. It's just
Lisa,
something that happens.
Lisa, I'm interested in, sorry now, cutting across you. In terms of, okay, we talk about the voice of children and children's rights, and we have to preserve them and empower children as much as we can. When it comes to children who have disabilities or have, you know, challenges, what's that like, and how do you think their voice is heard or is explored?
Well, unfortunately, we are their voice, you know, the parent of the child with the disability, or the adult or whatever with the disability. The carer, be it the parent, be the legal guardian, whatever, we are the voice. Their voice isn't heard. You know, they're always the second class citizens. They're always the ones that, when something has to be done, they're the ones that are always put down the line. You know, they're not going to pay taxes. They're not going to go out and put back into the society. So they're always the ones that they won't be seen as top priority, unfortunately. And for a parent of children with disabilities and navigating that area now at the moment, because my 16-year-old she was 17 this year, and then my 19-year-old, she's navigating it at the moment, and it's really, really difficult.
Yeah, I can only imagine, Lisa, what that's like. So you're obviously, you've had the children's services around you, and you've had support of TUSLA and all of that for the last number of years, and now you're transitioning into adult services. What feeling are you getting for that, or what kind of sense are you
It's
getting?
a nightmare, to be honest with you. Like, for the first 18 years of the child's life, TUSLA is there. They're essentially their legal parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then they turn 18 and that's it. It's nothing. You're left to your own devices. You get an aftercare worker, but you're left to your own devices. And that's really scary, really, really scary. And if you're in a situation where that the placement was okay over the years and the parents are okay to leave that child still in your care, well, the young adult, they're not a child any longer in the eyes of the law. In our eyes, they still are. And that's okay. But if you're in situations like I would be, that the mother would want her daughter back, even though she would never be able to care for her, you're talking about a legal situation. Okay. So for us, it's huge and it's new, and we are only beginning to navigate it now.
Okay. And so I suppose you're fearful, but I also feel, Lisa, confident that you'd be well placed to make sure.
Oh, we will. We'll fight. We will fight to the end. Yeah. We are essentially her parents as far as we're concerned, and we are not disregarding her mum in any way, but we've done all the caring and all the parenting, and for her, that's been the reason why she's got to the way she is and the age she is now.
And do you think that there could be a longer transition for people with disabilities in particular?
Absolutely. Yeah, I really feel it should be up to 23. I really feel that TUSLA should really look at their situations and TUSLA themselves, if you go to any social worker and say, I've got such a child and she has such a disability, what do I do? They'll say, I don't know. And they'll say, hang on, I ring Lisa. Lisa, our other foster parent, she'll know. Or such a foster parent who's had that experience will know. There's no training for social workers in this area. Absolutely none. And this is huge at the moment. There are a lot of children coming in with hidden disabilities. And the hidden disabilities are the ones that are causing the biggest breakdowns in placements.
I think you're right. Lisa. I know you're right, as in even my own knowledge around disability and our own journey as a society around disability is changing, and there's lots of improvements and there's lots of challenges within that, and we really need to do a lot more to disability proof our services.
Absolutely.
And up our knowledge. And in terms of that journey, Lisa, have you witnessed a change or an improvement? I mean, I know it's difficult to get the voice heard when a child has disabilities, etc. But do you feel that is a genuine move towards including people with disabilities?
It just depends. I mean, we were making big strides there a couple of years ago. I found there was some social workers and it was great and they were really making big strides, and then they moved on and we're back to square one again. Okay. It just depends on who that person is, what the interests are. And unfortunately for us, we are the silent foster parents, the ones with the children with disabilities, because as the saying goes, those that shout the loudest get what they need. And sometimes with someone like me who has 3 children with different needs, it can be, oh, here she goes again. Oh, it's her again. Oh, God, don't answer that phone. So
I know, yeah.
It can be difficult.
Yeah. So you have to somehow censor yourself a little bit to keep everyone on side.
It's education. You have to educate yourself. You have to educate yourself. If you're going to go into fostering like we have, you need some kind of knowledge in disabilities, or educate yourself. Why? Because social workers won't know. They won't have a clue. Yeah. They're going to hand you this beautiful little baby and you're going to go, oh, lovely. And in 3 years' time, you're going to be hitting your head off the wall going, oh, there's something wrong here and I don't understand what it is. Yeah. And they're not going to know either, and you could be in a situation like I was and being told, well, it's probably only trauma, And I mean, as I said, I'm not putting down trauma in any way. That's hard enough. But for a disability to be assessed and to actually get a name to that disability, that makes a world of difference to that child and to our placement.
What might work better in terms of fostering and foster parents? Is there anything you've experienced or think would work well to support foster parents or foster children?
I think the main thing for foster parents, if they are in a similar situation or even just one child that comes in with some kind of difficulties, is contact other foster parents.
Okay.
is attend your meetings, your coffee mornings, you know, get in touch with people, get in touch. Don't just rely on social workers, you know, because they've got a whole host of what they have on their books, and you're only just another visitation. You're another person to be ticked off. But get in touch with other foster parents. Don't be afraid to ask social workers for other, you know, for other numbers. Don't be afraid to ask IFCA, contact them, you know, come to us.
Yeah.
You know, I run the coffee mornings, you know, so come to us, come and sit down. I guarantee you, sitting in that room, there will be one person at least with some kind of knowledge. You know, that's how I got my knowledge.
There will, Lisa. And
You
there's
know.
great support and there's great power in the group, isn't there?
Absolutely. I mean, during lockdown, I would have been lost without my fostering family, as I call them now. All my friends, I would have absolutely lost. And we did a lot of our on Zoom, we did a lot of our contacts, you know, through texting each other and trying to help and support each other. We would have been lost without each other. And unfortunately, recently, one of our foster carers have passed away, and she's really missed. And she would have been a big, big part of our fostering family, you know.
And it is about that sharing knowledge and sharing local knowledge. I think is really important, isn't it, Lisa?
Yeah, and it's trying to share with each other what your experience is. Like, not everyone's experience is going to be identical, but I guarantee you will find somebody in there that'll say, hang on, actually, I might not know that, but my sister or somebody knows, or I can find that out for you. Or I'll always say, I'll find that out for you. And I guarantee I'll find that out for you, you know, at the end of the day. And we can always be contacted, always.
Lisa, I'm very aware of, you know, I suppose, what keeps you going? When we all have challenges, we all have difficult days, and we all have moments, and nobody's life is simple. And you've given us a lovely, very rich picture of your life. What keeps you going, or what has kept you going in those times? And I know you talked about your children earlier on and the foster network that you have, but just yourself, what is it that keeps you going?
I think it's my passion. It's my passion for fostering. It's my passion for fostering, and it's my passion around disabilities.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is. I think if I hadn't had the passion I have around the fostering around disabilities, I don't think I'd still be here. I don't think you can ever just say, I'm going to do this for the sake of it, or for the money, or for something like that. You can't, because let me tell you, that will fail very, very fast.
I think
when you really get into it, you know. And for me, it's just my passion. It's what keeps me going. It's what I can. It lets out all my anxieties when I can sit and talk about something. And my husband is great. Myself and my husband will sit down, and we will talk about things for hours and hours. We had to actually put down a rule that when we went for a meal, we didn't talk about it anymore, because it became our life completely. So now what I do is I go on holidays with my friends. I relax. I like to read. I like to, you know, things like that, that you just get away from it. You have to get away from it for a little while.
And I think that's really important, isn't it? And being able to have that separate time. Self-care. And we talk about self-care in a very kind of wishy-washy way, but
self-care is so important. Self-care is, I can't stress it enough, how important self-care is, because every one of us as foster parents will tell you we nearly hit burnout around lockdown.
Right.
We all nearly did. And so many placements broke down around lockdown. And it's become, you know, in the world of fostering now, it's become really prevalent that you have to have self-care. And you're seeing more groups, you know, that are suggesting maybe we have a day where we can have manicures, or we can just sit down and do a book club, or we can just chat or have a coffee and just, you know, just totally rejuvenate yourself, because you have to.
And Lisa, would you get respite? Would respite be something that you can avail of?
That's the dirty word. That R word is in fostering world. I never got it from TUSLA. We never got respite, but we do from disabilities. And
so tell me how that works. So the disability,
right? So disabilities, because the girls have intellectual disabilities, they are entitled to respite. So from they're about 6-7 years of age, both my girls go now together, which is great. So I would have maybe one weekend every 2-3 months.
Okay.
And maybe I'd have one afternoon after school a month. It's not a lot. We don't get a lot, but when we do get it, we really appreciate it, you know. So
vital, I'd say.
Vital. We don't get it from TUSLA because basically, in order to have respite in my situation, it would be training somebody up to look after our middle girl, which is not worth it. If I was to do anything, my own children are trained for that.
Okay.
So they would step in and say, right, mom and dad, you go away for the weekend. We're going to move in. So you'd have my daughter moving in, her partner moving in, my son moving in, his partner moving in, and they all do it together to mind the three of them.
Amazing.
You know, so they all move in back into the house. And that's the way we have our breaks. It's the only respite week, unless they are going to disabilities.
And Lisa, you said the dirty word of respite. Talk to me a little bit more about that, because it sounds to me, as someone who doesn't foster, that it would be something that I might need from time to time.
Well, everybody needs it. It doesn't matter what child you're fostering. Every foster parent, every fostering family needs respite. You're taking on children who are coming into your home and they're essentially turning your world upside down. And it doesn't matter how good they are or what, they're still going to turn your world upside down. The dynamics in your home has changed. You know, your own children are taking a step back. Even if you haven't got children, you as a couple are taking a step back. You know, you're used to just having each other. And all of a sudden you're caring for someone else. You're taking in consideration about everybody else except yourself. So you need that respite. You need that downtime to focus on each other, you know, and to focus on your family. Unfortunately, TUSLA doesn't have the foster parents to give respite. That's what we're told. There should be, I think, there's more they could do to look into it. We have suggestions and we've given them suggestions. And I think there's more they could do to look into giving people what they essentially need.
Well, Lisa, tell me, what kind of creative approaches could we take, or what might we look at?
Well, we feel there should be like a hub of foster carers. Like you'll always hear us when we're in a group saying, we'll help, we'll do it for you, we'll do it. But when we go back to the social workers, we'd be told, oh, you can't do that. You can't be just suggesting that you're going to mind that child or you're going to do this. Now, they will tell you 72 hours is at your own discretion once you feel that's a safe environment for the child. But that's still, you have to inform them, and 99.9% will come back and say, maybe not. Maybe that's not the right place to send them. It mightn't be for any particular reason. It could be just that they don't feel that it is at that particular time. But we feel that if there was a group of foster parents that come together, that have the spare room, that have the time on their hands, and would say, look, I'll take such a child, you know, or I'll help out with such a child at such a weekend. And it has happened, you know, in the 72 hours. But unfortunately, you know, if they made it more legal and they made it more, you know, this is how we're going to do it, it would work, definitely would work.
Well, look, I mean, I know you know the system much better than I do, but it sounds to me like that's a pretty important thing, that people get a break and are able to, it'll sustain the placement over time, I would imagine.
And foster carers are always eager to help each other. And nobody knows you like a foster carer knows you. You know, like we just have to walk into a room and maybe I'd be bubbly and maybe someday I'd walk in and I'd just go over and I'd just go straight to the coffee machine. And I guarantee you within a couple of minutes, somebody will say, are you okay? Is there something going on? You know, and it's just, we all know each other. And especially when we know you need a break, that's when foster carers are each other's lifeline. When, you know.
Well, Lisa, you have a particularly busy household, and I'm glad to hear you're getting some kind of a break, and that you have those supports that you can rely on. They're essential, absolutely essential. Lisa, if you were to talk to somebody who was starting out as a foster carer, and I know you started many years ago now?
17
years ago. Or if you could talk to yourself even maybe 17 years ago, and you could envision yourself, what would you be saying, or what could you say to them? How could we ease this And smooth this path for people.
The first thing I'd have to say is knowledge is power. And that's so, so important. You know, if you want to do a particular area like we did, don't jump in and say, oh yeah, I want to do that. That's lovely. We get a little child now and it'll have Down syndrome, or I'm just using that as an example, not, you know, or we'll have a child, you know, oh, I don't want children with autism. They're too difficult.
Yeah.
Or I don't want child, you know, knowledge is power. And at the end of the day, you know, every child is different. I have a child with autism. She's high functioning autism. So she can speak, she can dance, she can do everything that maybe a child who's not as high a functioning that can't do.
Yeah.
You know, so everything is different. Knowledge is power. If you're offered a placement, you know, don't say yes straight away.
Okay.
Sit down, talk about it, ask social workers for information. Ask them. We didn't. We were like, yeah,
Okay.
no problem. Yeah, we'll take them. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, come on. As my husband said, you know, we'd be bussing them in. It was ridiculous with me because it was like, yes, you know, but you have to sit down and you have to discuss it between yourselves. You have to ask for loads of information, and don't be afraid to go back to social workers and say, you know, we're still not too sure. Can you give me some more information on that?
Okay. Yeah.
You know, and don't be afraid to say no.
And
you know,
don't be afraid to say no.
Don't be afraid to say no. It has to suit your environment. It has to suit your lifestyle, and it definitely has to suit the child's. No point in taking the child into your home if you're not going to be, you know, you're not going to be the right foster carers for them because you just jumped into it and you hadn't got a clue what was going on, you know, and now they're too difficult for you to manage.
Yeah, yeah. But what I also picked up what you were saying there, Lisa, was that also being open to the potential of maybe having a placement that you wouldn't think would maybe match you, but it might turn out to be.
Absolutely. And, you know, never be afraid to try new things. You know, always, as I said, I know when I started out, my background in disabilities was more towards my middle child, where she has, you know, the physical disabilities, she has the medical side. So that was all my background. My background wasn't towards fetal alcohol or towards, you know, children with autism. So I probably would have been one of those parents who would have said to the beginning, oh, don't give me a child with autism. I am not, no, I don't know anything about it. Oh God, I wouldn't be able. But it's, you know, it's learning about it, and don't be afraid to step into somebody else's shoes for a little while. Even ask somebody who has a child, you know, in those areas that you're unsure of. And say, look, do you think we would be the right kind of family? Or if we were to take on a child in that area, how do you think it would work for us? You know, or is there any pointers you can give us? You know, before you make, but don't make the decision straight away. Definitely take time, because social workers can put a guilt trip on you and say, oh, we have to get this child into a home, then we have to do this. And that's okay if that's emergency care. That's fine. That has to be done. We see those cases all the time. But if you're going to go for more of a longer term, or you're going to go for, say, like we did with disabilities, it needs to be taught about. It really needs to be, you know, and you need to be educated in on the situations.
And Lisa, I know I get the sense that the future is the girls will continue to stay with you, and they will live their lives with you, and they're your family, and there's no question about that. I don't get what's next for you though, in terms of if the girls are, you know, if they somehow they move on, or they're with you, whatever their circumstances are, how will you stay connected?
I'll continue to foster children with disabilities. I'm not finished. I'm just up to turning 50, so I feel I've a good 10 years left in me in the fostering world. No, I'll continue with the disabilities, and even if I can't continue to do it full time, I would like to be kind of help in some way, say maybe other foster carers who need respite with children with disabilities. As we get older, myself and my husband, you know, we said that we'd like to maybe do respite for other foster carers who have children like we have at the moment. And to be there, you know, to be that person that you can say, well, we'll send them on to Lisa and Tommy at the weekend. Maybe, you know, next weekend, or it's been a hard week, maybe Lisa and Tommy will take them, or, you know, something like that. So that's what we would like to be, a support.
Well, Lisa, you're an incredible resource to all of us, that, you know, and foster carers like you, they're a huge resource for a knowledge base, and I think we need to tap into that.
Absolutely.
I think that's a gap, I think, that we in our conversation, I think that I may feel that we've identified anyway. Lisa, in terms of last words or words of wisdom or words of comfort, I'll invite you to maybe speak to that a little bit.
Okay. I suppose for any foster carer who's out there at the moment and feeling, oh, this is hard, or you're not alone. You really aren't. We might be a minority, and there mightn't be a big amount of foster carers all over the place, but we're huge when it comes to supporting each other. Please don't be afraid to get in touch. Don't be afraid to get in touch with IFCA. They'll always send you on to one of us in your area. Don't be afraid to talk about things. Don't think that because you're talking about things, we're going to judge. Nobody judges, you know, and that's the one thing that we've always had to say. And we always say when we're in our meetings, you know, what happens in this room stays in this room.
Yeah.
And nobody will be judged. And look at, if it's not for you, don't be afraid to step away or have a break.
Yeah.
You know, step away for a little while. Sometimes when you step away, you know, you can see the wood for the trees. You know, it's like, you can't see things when you're bogged down and your head is fuzzled and everybody's coming at you from left, right, and center, and you're just, oh, I can't do this. Yeah. But when you step away and you sit down and you actually have a little bit of time, then it makes all the difference. And as I said, you know, take from your supports. Yeah, support is huge, and don't ever be alone and feel you don't have the support, because you do. We're all in it together, and we all have bad days.
Yeah, that's it, Lisa. We all have bad days. I think it's just when those bad days become more frequent than the good days, and that's what we have to watch out for.
And then you have to step away for a little while and have a little break.
Yeah. Lisa, I've learned so much, really and truly. I mean that by talking to you this morning. I mean, I feel a little bit humbled by the fact that I'm not, number one, I'm not as active in supporting people as you are, and also my knowledge base around what needs to be done. So we have, what I'm struck by is there's a lot been done, but there's a lot yet to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we take that away from this morning. But Lisa, look, I think we'll wrap it up there. It was so nice to speak with you, and as I said, I hope the listeners have been able to gain something from your insights and your generosity of sharing about your family and your experiences. So thank you, and thanks to your family, because I think we talked about them, and they need a thank you as well in all of this.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It was lovely to speak to you. Thank you. Bye bye.
It was a great pleasure talking to Lisa Clancy. She is an inspirational foster carer. That's it for this episode. See you next time on Stories from Foster Care. And remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.